Let me tell you something. Most folks dream about owning their own little slice of heaven. But me, I accidentally ended up owning the whole damn county, and nobody, not even the queen of the HOA, saw it coming. Picture this. It's 7 in the morning, fog still hugging the ground, when 3 squad cars come barreling up my dirt road, sirens howling like it's a hostage situation. And right behind them, Delilah Thornfield, Miss Designer Heels herself, striding out like she's leading a coup, jabbing her manicured finger at me, shouting for the cops to haul me away for trespassing on HOA land. Yeah, that happened. Now you want to talk about awkward. Try sitting in your grandfather's old rocking chair, still clutching your coffee, while the sheriff you've known since Little League tries to act official. I reach into my pocket, pull out this crusty yellow paper, and I just hand it over. The sheriff unfolds it, eyes bugging out, original 1890s land grant. Every inch, Delilah, is standing on every overpriced home, all of it mine. Watching her face turn 3 shades of panic was sweeter than maple syrup on cornbread. But let me back up a sec, because if you're wondering how a nobody like me ended up in an all-out war with the HOA, well, buckle up. Name's Rex Caldwell. 3rd-generation logger, part-time oil man, and full-time pain in the ass to folks who think money and paperwork can erase 100 years of family history. 2 years ago, my old man passed, and suddenly I'm the proud owner of a log cabin built back when Montana was more grizzly bear than Starbucks. 40 acres of creek and timber passed down in my family since before they paved the roads. You'd think that'd buy a man a little peace, but no. While I was busting my knuckles in Alaska, some slick developers turned my valley into Alpine Vista Estates, a playground for city folks with money to burn and no clue how to split firewood. That's how Delilah landed here, a corporate lawyer from Seattle with a Tesla that costs more than my first house and the attitude to match. She bought the biggest place on the hill, made herself HOA president in about 5 minutes, and decided the whole county ought to run like a board meeting. Delilah had this way of making you feel like you didn't belong, smiling with her teeth, calling grown men sweetie, always tossing in her law degree when she wanted to end an argument. First time she came calling, it was Tuesday, sun barely up, and she marched right up on my porch in her cream suit and heels, clipboard in hand, ready to hand down some commandments. "Mr. Caldwell, your property isn't up to community standards," she chirps. I set down my axe, told her plain as I could, "Ma'am, I don't answer to any HOA." She just laughed, this icy sound that made my bones ache, and handed me a letter, $25 to $1,000 in mandatory improvements, 30 days to comply, or $500 a day in fines. I don't care how good your well water is, nothing will wash out that taste of pure injustice. So I went inside, dug out Grandpa's old survey map, yellow as autumn hay but binding as the Bible. Showed it to her. She barely glanced, said, "That's irrelevant, sweetie. You'll comply or we'll make sure you do." Her heels clicked away like the ticking of a bomb. That night I sat on my porch, moonshine in hand, General Patton, my hound, by my side, and I knew right then war had been declared. Not by me, but by this woman who didn't know the first thing about mountain people or what we're willing to do to protect what's ours. Didn't take her long to launch the first attack code enforcement convoy crawling up my drive. 3 inspectors measuring tapes and faces full of regret. Delilah watched from her Tesla like a vulture. I invited the boys in for coffee, laid out every permit and deed I had. Turns out non-conforming use is the magic phrase. My cabin's so old their shiny new rules don't apply. When the inspectors left, the lead guy shook my hand, said my place was in better shape than any new build they'd seen. Watching Delilah's jaw tighten from across the yard, priceless. But she was just getting started. Came home that afternoon to find her Tesla blocking my driveway. She claimed a new survey made my road part of HOA common space. I told her straight 3 generations of Caldwells had worn that road flat. She just shrugged and said, "Feel free to call the sheriff sweetie." She knew nobody would arrest the HOA president without a mountain of proof. For a week, she made my life hell. Tesla always blocking something, snapping pictures of my woodpile, complaining to the paper about dangerous hillbillies lowering property values. The headline painted me as the town menace. For a minute, it felt like her side was winning. But that's when something wild happened. The real locals, the ones whose families have been here since horses outnumbered cars, started showing up at my door. Casseroles, tools, war stories. Jake from the hardware store, Sarah the nurse with her outlaw veggie garden, they all had their own run-ins with Delilah. Suddenly it was us versus her, and even General Patton joined in marking her Tesla's tires like it was a daily ritual. Delilah wasn't about to let up. She called a big emergency meeting, packed the community center full of county officials, media, and every resident she could wrangle. She stood at that podium with her white blazer, glowing, spinning tales about my dangerous cabin. Photos, PowerPoints, the whole show. She even tried to get the commissioner to condemn my place as a public nuisance. But when it was my turn, I walked up, dropped a certified engineer's report and a fire marshal letter on the table, proving my place was safer than any in Alpine Vista. That's when Delilah finally let her real intentions slip. This isn't about safety, it's about property values. Translation: she wanted me gone so she could expand her empire. Well, that was her mistake. See, I'm stubborn, but I'm also thorough. Turns out Grandpa didn't just leave me 40 acres, he kept the mineral and water rights under every parcel he ever sold. A trip to the old surveyor confirmed that we still owned the whole valley underground. Every fancy house, every swimming pool, they were all sitting on top of what the Caldwell family never gave up. When Delilah found out, she went nuclear, calling the sheriff with false reports, launching a media campaign, hiring a PI to dig up dirt, even hitting me with a lawsuit for back HOA fees. But for every move she made, the community got tighter, and even her own board started bailing. My ace in the hole. A crusty old land grant. Margaret at the clerk's office dug up, proving my family once owned all 12,000 acres of Pineville County. And thanks to all those retained rights, I could legally shut off Alpine Vista's water supply or dig under half their houses if I wanted. But here's the thing, just because you can drop the hammer doesn't mean you should. I could have bankrupted every one of those homeowners, and trust me, revenge would have been sweet. But what good's a victory if it leaves your neighbors broke and bitter? Instead, with some help from a sharp environmental lawyer, a conservation biologist, and the town banker, we cooked up something better, a community land trust. My mineral and water rights became the backbone, letting folks own their homes while the land stayed protected and the power stayed with the people, not some HOA dictator. Delilah tried one last dirty move, hiring a management company that treated locals like speed bumps and tried to fine everyone out of existence. But her timing was rotten. The FBI had started sniffing around thanks to a bribery tip, and that shady company was already under investigation in 3 states. When our big meeting came, Delilah strutted in ready to declare victory until I walked up with the original land grant, all those old deeds, and a plan that freed everyone from her grip. The place erupted in applause. The FBI cuffed Delilah right there for bribery, and her hired muscle slipped out the back like whipped dogs. A month later, at the first Great Decision barbecue, neighbors who'd barely nodded before shared food, laughter, and the kind of hope you can taste in the air. The trust passed by a landslide. Delilah's mansion sold to a teacher's family, and her old supporters realized they'd rather vote than cower. Property values held, costs dropped, and we preserved thousands of acres for future generations. Now every evening I sit on that same porch watching kids chase fireflies, hearing bluegrass echo off the ridges, knowing we did more than win, we changed what this place means. Delilah's now a cautionary tale, her empire toppled by the very people she tried to control. Sometimes the best revenge isn't payback, it's building something that lasts longer than anybody's grudge. So tell me, what's your wildest HOA horror story? Have you ever stood your ground and won? Drop your tales below. Let's hear where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you want more justice served mountain style. Because in the end, the only thing better than beating a Karen is making sure nobody like her ever gets to try again.